The crystal glass cracked before anyone understood why. Edward Wallace's hand had tightened, just once, around the stem, and the hairline fracture spiderwebbed across its surface with a sound like bones settling. Before we dive deeper into this story, make sure to subscribe. New stories unfold here every day, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single one. And don't forget to comment which state you're watching from. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in. No one at La Sorella Bistro had seen him react to anything. Not threats, not violence, not even bloodshed. But Amber Robinson's voice, soft, measured, perfectly trained to blend into expensive silence, had done what nothing else could. It had broken him. "Good evening. Welcome to La Sorella. Can I?" He looked up, not at her, through her, as if her face were glass and something unbearable lived just beneath it. His jaw locked. His breath stopped. His entire body became a wire pulled taut enough to hum. Then, in a voice so quiet it scraped the air, "Say that again." Amber blinked, pen frozen mid-air. "My greeting." "Yes." His tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. The same words. The same tone. She hesitated, then repeated softly. "Good evening. Welcome to La Sorella. Can I?" The glass shattered completely in his palm. Blood welled between his fingers. Thin, dark, ignored. Every diner within 10 feet saw. No one moved. No one breathed. Edward stood slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving hers. Then he spoke, not loud, not harsh, but with a kind of absolute authority that didn't ask, didn't explain, and never repeated itself. "Everyone out." The manager stepped forward, stammering. "Sir, we can't just." Edward turned his head 1 degree. That was all. The manager went pale. "Everyone," Edward repeated, his voice a blade wrapped in silk. "Out." The restaurant emptied like water draining from a sink. Couples left their coats. Businessmen abandoned half-signed contracts. A woman's purse tipped over, spilling lipstick across white marble. No one stopped to pick it up. The kitchen staff slipped through the back. The hostess fled without looking back. Within 90 seconds, the room was silent. Amber stood alone. Edward locked the door. The deadbolt clicked into place with the finality of a coffin closing. He didn't touch her, didn't move closer, but the space between them felt alive, electric, dangerous, suffocating. "Your voice," he said quietly. His gaze pinned her in place like a butterfly under glass. "It's hers." Amber's throat tightened. "Whose?" He stared at her the way someone stares at a ghost. Something they'd buried, something they'd mourned, something that shouldn't be standing in front of them breathing. "Lily." The name landed like a stone in still water. Amber's heart kicked once, violently. That's my mother's name." Edward's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes cracked open. "No," he said. "Your mother was." Amber Robinson's shift at La Sorella Bistro always began the same way. Quietly, precisely, without fanfare. She tied her apron over her red and white uniform, starched, spotless, anonymous, and tucked her hair behind her ears in 2 efficient movements. She checked table numbers against the seating chart. She counted wine glasses, ensuring each one was positioned exactly 2 inches from the edge of the table. She moved like someone who had learned to exist without taking up space. La Sorella was the kind of place where wealthy people came to pretend they were ordinary, where business deals disguised themselves as casual dinners, where laughter was soft and manners were sharp enough to cut. Amber had worked there for 3 years. She knew which tables tipped well, which guests wanted conversation, which ones wanted to be invisible. She had become very good at being invisible herself. Every night, Amber walked the same route home. Past the pharmacy where she picked up Mason's prescriptions. Past the physical therapy clinic where he went twice a week. Past the bus stop where their mother used to wait after her second shift, before work broke her body and left her too tired to stand. Mason was 14. Fragile in the way boys his age shouldn't be. He needed expensive medication that insurance covered only partially. He needed weekly physical therapy that cost more than Amber made in 3 days. He needed a life that didn't feel like waiting. Their father had vanished when Amber was 6. Their mother had worked 2 jobs until exhaustion hollowed her out from the inside. Now Amber worked for all 3 of them. Rent, food, hospital fees. Everything rested on her shoulders. She didn't complain. She didn't have time to. Every night at closing, she walked Mason's face home in her mind. His crooked smile, his terrible jokes, the way he pretended he wasn't scared, and reminded herself what she was working for. There was one thing Amber carried that didn't make sense. A small glass vial of perfume. Expensive. Nearly empty. Her mother had pressed it into her hands 3 years ago, the night before she'd gone into the hospital for the last time. "Keep this," her mother had whispered, her voice thin as tissue paper. "Don't wear it. Don't lose it. Just keep it." Amber had asked why. Her mother's eyes had gone distant. "Because if anyone ever asks about our past, you say you don't know a thing." Amber had never understood. She'd kept the perfume anyway, hidden in her locker at work. A relic of a woman who had spent her entire life running from something Amber couldn't name. Friday night arrived the way it always did. Tables filling quickly, voices layering into a low hum of wealth and power. Amber moved through her section with practiced efficiency. Water glasses refilled. Orders taken. Smiles offered at precisely the right moment. Then the room shifted. Conversations dimmed. Chairs straightened. Eyes turned toward the door. A man had entered. No guards. No entourage. Yet the space rearranged itself around him the way water yields to a moving ship. Edward Wallace. The name traveled in whispers, the kind you never spoke louder than breath. Some called him a businessman. Others called him the man who owned the city's silence. Amber had only ever seen him in passing news articles. Grainy photos attached to rumors no one could prove. Powerful. Untouchable. Untouched. She did not know him. At least, she didn't think she did. He took the back booth, the one always kept empty just in case, and waited without ordering. The hostess froze. The manager stayed away. No one wanted to be responsible for speaking to him first. So they sent Amber. Because Amber was careful. Because Amber was invisible. Because Amber didn't make mistakes. She approached the table, pen ready, voice steady. And when she spoke, everything changed. He heard her voice, and the world stopped breathing. Edward Wallace didn't flinch when men threatened him. He didn't blink when blood was spilled. But when Amber Robinson said, "Good evening. Welcome to La Sorella," his hand shattered the crystal glass he was holding. No explanation. No warning. Just one whispered command that emptied the entire restaurant in 90 seconds. Everyone out. And when the door locked behind them, when she stood alone with the most dangerous man in the city, he said the one thing that made her blood run cold. Your voice. It's hers. The silence after the door locked was not peaceful. It pressed against Amber's eardrums like water at depth. Heavy, suffocating, alive with pressure. Edward Wallace stood 10 feet away. His hand still bleeding from the shattered glass. He hadn't looked at it. Hadn't wrapped it. Hadn't acknowledged the thin line of crimson tracking across his palm and dripping onto the white marble floor. His eyes stayed fixed on her. Amber's pulse hammered against her ribs. She should run. She should scream. She should do something other than stand there like prey that had forgotten how to move. But her legs wouldn't obey. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. I don't understand what's happening. Edward exhaled slowly through his nose, a controlled release of something that looked like it wanted to be a scream. Your voice, he said again, quieter this time, almost to himself. It's impossible. What's impossible? He tilted his head, studying her the way someone studies a forgery, searching for the flaw, the place where the illusion breaks down. You sound exactly like her. Amber swallowed hard. Like who? Lily Hart. The name landed differently this time. Not like a stone, like a blade. Amber's breath hitched. That's my mother. But how do you? Your mother. Edward's voice flattened. When did she die? The question was so direct, so certain that Amber flinched. 3 years ago. Cancer. But I don't understand why you. What was her maiden name? Hart. Lily Hart. She married my father when. She didn't marry anyone. The words cut through the air like a guillotine. Amber blinked. What? Edward took one step closer. Just one. But it collapsed the space between them into something unbearable. Lily Hart, he said, each word measured and deliberate, was my fiancée. 20 years ago. She disappeared without a trace. No goodbye. No explanation. No body. Amber's mouth went dry. That's not possible. My mother was married. She had a husband. He left when I was. She lied to you. You don't know that. I know, Edward said, his voice dropping to something dangerously soft, because I spent 5 years searching for her. I know because I tore this city apart looking for any sign that she was still alive. I know because I buried an empty casket with her name on it when I finally accepted she was gone. Amber shook her head, her thoughts spinning. My mother never mentioned you. Not once. Not ever. She wouldn't have. Why not? Edward's jaw tightened. Because she was protecting you. From what? From me. The admission hung in the air like smoke. Amber wanted to laugh. Wanted to call this insane. Wanted to tell him he had the wrong person, the wrong voice, the wrong life. But something cold and certain was crawling up her spine. The locks her mother checked twice every night. The way she never let Amber speak loudly in public places. The sudden moves when Amber was young. New cities, new names, new schools without explanation. The fear that lived under her mother's skin like marrow. It hadn't been paranoia. It had been this. I don't believe you, Amber whispered, but the words felt hollow even as she said them. Edward reached into his jacket. Amber flinched. He froze, his hand still inside his coat. I'm not going to hurt you, he said quietly. Then what are you doing? Showing you the truth. He pulled out a photograph, old, creased, faded at the edges, and held it out to her. Amber didn't take it at first. She stared at it from where she stood, her heart pounding. The woman in the photo was young, beautiful, smiling in a way that looked like sunlight breaking through clouds. She was wearing a white dress, standing beside a man in a dark suit. His hand rested on her waist. Her head leaned against his shoulder. They looked happy. They looked whole. Amber's knees went weak. Because the woman in the photograph, that was her mother, younger, healthier, unbroken by exhaustion and fear, but unmistakably her. And the man beside her. Amber's gaze snapped up to Edward's face. The same sharp jaw, the same dark eyes, the same presence that made the air feel too thin. No, Amber breathed. Yes. This doesn't make sense. She would have told me. She would have. She spent 20 years making sure you never found out, Edward interrupted. She erased herself, changed her name, buried her past so deep even I couldn't find it. Amber's hands trembled. Why? Edward's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes fractured. Because I was dangerous. Because loving me meant living in a world where people disappear. Where enemies don't ask questions before they pull triggers. Where children become collateral. His voice dropped. She didn't run because she stopped loving me. He paused. She ran because she loved you more. Amber's throat closed. She thought of Mason. Of the medication she could barely afford. Of the nights she went without eating so he could have seconds. Of the way she would burn the world down if it meant keeping him safe. And suddenly, horribly, she understood. I need to leave, Amber whispered. Edward didn't move. You can't. You said you weren't going to hurt me. I'm not. His gaze held hers. But the moment you walked into my line of sight, the moment I recognized your voice, the moment I reacted the way I did in front of a room full of people, you became visible. Amber's pulse spiked. What does that mean? It means, Edward said quietly, that I have enemies. And those enemies just watched me clear an entire restaurant because of you. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. So what happens now? Edward's expression was unreadable. Now, he said, you tell me everything you know about Lily Hart. And I tell you why your mother spent 20 years running. Amber wanted to refuse. Wanted to walk out. Wanted to pretend this conversation had never happened. But the photograph was still in Edward's hand. Her mother's smile staring back at her. Young, hopeful, unafraid. And Amber realized. She had never seen her mother look like that. Not once. Not ever. So she stayed. And the past, patient and relentless, finally began to speak. Edward moved to the bar without asking permission. He poured 2 glasses of water, one for himself, one for Amber, and set hers on the nearest table. She didn't touch it. He drank his in one long pull, then set the glass down with a kind of precision that made even small gestures feel deliberate. When he spoke, his voice was calm. Calm. The kind of calm that lived on the other side of rage. Lily and I were engaged 20 years ago. She was 23. I was 26. We were supposed to be married in the fall. Amber stood frozen, her arms wrapped around herself like a barrier. Edward continued. She disappeared in July. No warning. No argument. I woke up one morning and she was gone. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her ring was on the nightstand. But she was gone. His jaw tightened. I searched for her. Years. I used every resource I had. Every connection. Every threat. Every favor I was owed. He paused. I found nothing. Amber's throat felt raw. Why didn't you stop looking? Because I needed to know why. Edward's gaze sharpened. I didn't care if she didn't love me anymore. I didn't care if she'd found someone else. I just needed to know she was alive. That she was safe. That she chose to leave. He exhaled slowly. Then I found out she was pregnant when she disappeared. The room tilted. Amber's voice came out strangled. What? She was 8 weeks along, Edward said. I didn't know. She never told me. I only found out after she vanished. From a doctor's appointment she'd missed. Amber's hands began to shake. That can't be. But the math was already forming in her mind. Unwanted. Undeniable. 20 years ago. Her mother running. Pregnant. Alone. Well, how old are you, Amber? Edward asked quietly. She couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. Wow. Old. 19, she whispered. Edward nodded once. She ran because she was carrying you. Because she knew what my world would do to a child. What it would demand. What it would take. Amber staggered backward until her spine hit the wall. The locks her mother checked obsessively. The way she flinched at loud voices. The moves. Always sudden, always unexplained. The way she taught Amber to speak softly, to blend in, to never draw attention. The nightmares that woke her screaming. It had all been real. She never told me, Amber breathed. She never said anything about you. About this. She wouldn't have. Edward's voice gentled, barely. Because telling you would have made you a target. The moment you knew who I was, the moment you knew where you came from, you would have become leverage. A weakness. A way to hurt me. His expression hardened. Your mother understood that. So she erased herself. She became someone new. She built a life where no one would ever connect her to me. Then how did you? Your voice, Edward said simply. You sound exactly like her. Cadence, tone, the way certain words fall. I would have recognized it anywhere. Amber's knees buckled. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold marble floor, her head in her hands. This isn't real. This can't be real. Edward didn't move toward her, didn't offer comfort. He simply stood there, watching her world collapse with the patience of a man who had watched his own world end 20 years ago. You were never supposed to be found, he said quietly. Your mother made sure of that. She sacrificed everything to keep you hidden. He paused. But your voice betrayed you. Amber looked up at him, tears streaking her face. What happens now? Edward's expression was unreadable. That depends on you. Amber didn't wait to hear more. She shoved herself to her feet and ran. Past the tables. Past the bar. Past the locked door that she wrenched open with trembling hands. Edward didn't stop her. Didn't call after her. Didn't move. He simply stood in the center of the empty restaurant, blood still dripping from his forgotten hand, and watched her disappear into the night, the way Lily had, 20 years ago. The apartment was dark when Amber stumbled through the door. Her hands shook as she locked the deadbolt, then the chain, then checked them both twice, the way her mother always had. Amber! Mason's voice drifted from the living room, groggy and confused. She forced herself to breathe, to steady, to become normal again. Yeah, it's me. She found him on the couch, wrapped in the blanket she'd left him with. His physics textbook open across his lap. The TV played quietly in the background, some late-night rerun he wasn't watching. He blinked up at her, concern creasing his too thin face. You okay? You look. I'm fine. The lie tasted like copper. Just a long shift. Mason studied her the way he always did when she was lying, like he could see straight through her. But he was 14, and tired, and he wanted to believe her. So he nodded. Okay. There's leftover pasta in the fridge if you want it. Thanks. You take your meds. Yeah. All of them. Yes, Amber. Geez. She managed something that might have been a smile. Get some sleep. School tomorrow. Mason groaned but closed his textbook. As he shuffled toward his room, Amber stood in the center of the living room and felt the walls close in. The memories came without permission. 6. Her mother's voice, soft and trembling, singing a lullaby Amber had loved. Hush now, my darling, don't you cry. But her mother's face had been wet. Tears streaming silently down her cheeks even as she smiled. Even as she stroked Amber's hair. Even as she whispered, you're safe. You're safe. You're safe. Like a prayer. Like a lie. 9. The sudden move. No warning. Just her mother shaking her awake in the middle of the night. A duffel bag already packed. We have to go, sweetheart. Right now. But what about my friends? What about school? You'll make new friends. But Mom. Now, Amber. The fear in her mother's voice had been sharper than any command. They'd left everything behind. The life Amber had just started to build. Gone in a single night. 12. Her mother's hand gripping hers too tightly in the grocery store. Remember what I told you. Speak softly. Don't draw attention. I know, Mom. I mean it, Amber. Keep your voice down. Always. Why? Her mother's eyes had gone distant. Haunted. Because some people listen for the wrong reasons. Amber pressed her palms against her eyes until colors bloomed behind her lids. Had never been paranoia. It had been survival. She moved on autopilot toward her mother's room. The door creaked open. The space still smelled faintly of lavender and sickness, the combination that had filled their home for months before the end. Amber hadn't touched anything. Couldn't bear to. But now she needed answers. She knelt beside the bed and pulled out the single cardboard box she'd shoved underneath 3 years ago. The one labeled Lily's things in her own handwriting. Inside, a few folded sweaters, a worn Bible, a small jewelry box containing nothing valuable, and at the bottom, a journal. Amber's hands trembled as she opened it. The entries were sparse, dated irregularly, written in her mother's careful, slanted script. I saw him today. From across the street. He didn't see me. Thank God he didn't see me. Amber asked about her father again. I told her he left. It's easier than the truth. She has his eyes. I see him every time she looks at me. Amber's vision blurred. She flipped to the last entry. If you're reading this, Amber, I'm sorry. For the lies. For the fear. For the life I couldn't give you. But I would do it all again. Because you were worth every sacrifice. I love you more than breath. Amber's chest cracked open. She pressed the journal to her sternum and sobbed. Silent, wrenching, the kind of crying that had no sound because there was no air left. When she could breathe again, she reached back into the box. Her fingers brushed something smooth. Photograph. Tucked into the journal's back cover. He pulled it free. And there they were. Her mother, young, radiant, alive in a way Amber had never seen. And Edward Wallace. His arm around her waist. Her head tilted toward him. Both of them smiling like the world belonged to them. On the back, in faded ink. Lily and Edward. June 2005. You and me against the world. Amber stared at her mother's face. The happiness there. The kind that couldn't be faked. The kind that had been carved out of her by fear. Hey, Amber. He jumped. Mason stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. What? Her voice came out raw. I forgot to tell you earlier. When I got home from therapy, there were these guys outside. Just standing there. Watching the building. Amber's blood went cold. What guys? Mason shrugged. I dunno. Nice cars. They didn't do anything. Just watched. He yawned. Probably nothing. Night. He shuffled away. Amber sat frozen on the floor. The photograph still in her hand. Her mother's smile staring back at her. And somewhere outside, in the dark, someone was watching. Amber didn't sleep. She sat on the couch until dawn bled through the blinds, the photograph clutched in her hand, every creak of the building making her flinch. When Mason shuffled out for school, she forced cereal and normalcy. You look terrible, he said through a mouthful of Cheerios. Thanks. Seriously. You sick? Just tired. He studied her for a long moment, then shrugged and grabbed his backpack. See you after therapy. Text me when you get there. I always do. The door closed behind him. Amber locked it immediately. Deadbolt. In. Check again. Then she stood at the window and watched Mason walk to the bus stop. A black sedan was parked across the street. Engine off. Windows tinted. No one got out. Her pulse spiked. Mason boarded the bus. The sedan didn't move. Amber told herself she was being paranoid. Told herself it was nothing. Told herself the last 24 hours had shattered her sense of reality, and now she was seeing threats in shadows. But when she left for her morning shift 3 hours later, the sedan followed her. Stayed 2 cars back. Professional. Careful. Never close enough to be obvious. Never far enough to lose her. Amber's hands tightened on the steering wheel of her battered Honda. She took a sudden right turn. The sedan followed. Left at the next light. Followed. Her breathing went shallow. She pulled into the restaurant parking lot, her heart hammering. The sedan drove past. Slowly. Deliberately. Then circled the block and parked across the street. Waiting. Her shift was a blur. She dropped 2 orders. Forgot a table's drinks. Spilled coffee on herself. Her manager pulled her aside. Amber. You okay? Fine. You're not fine. You look like you're about to pass out. I'm fine. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. At 2 p.m. her phone buzzed. A text from the pharmacy. Your brother's prescription has been delayed. Supply issue. We'll notify you when it's available. Asterisk asterisk. Amber's stomach dropped. Mason had 3 days of medication left. Maybe 4 if she rationed. She called the pharmacy immediately. This is Amber Robinson. My brother's prescription. You just texted me it's delayed. Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, our supplier. He needs that medication. It's not optional. I understand, but can you transfer it to another pharmacy? Let me check. Hold music. I'm sorry, ma'am. It looks like there's a system-wide delay. All our partners are showing the same issue. That doesn't make sense. I agree. It's very unusual. But there's nothing I can do until the hold is lifted. What hold? I don't have those details. I'm sorry. The line went dead. Amber stared at her phone. Supply issues didn't happen system-wide. Not for a medication Mason had been taking for 2 years. Not without warning. Not by coincidence. At 4 p.m. her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, desperation, the faint hope it might be the pharmacy, made her pick up. Hello. Silence. Then a voice. Low. Controlled. Furious. Amber. Edward. She should have hung up. Should have thrown the phone across the room. Instead, she whispered. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. His tone was clipped. Urgent. Listen to me very carefully. You're being watched. You've been followed since this morning. Your brother's medication delay wasn't an accident. Her blood turned to ice. What are you talking about? My enemies. Edward's voice went quieter. Deadlier. They saw what happened at the restaurant. They know I reacted to you. That makes you leverage. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You need to listen. He paused. Are you home? No. I'm at work. Good. Stay there. Don't leave. Don't go anywhere alone. Why are you telling me this? Because, Edward said, and for the first time since she'd met him, she heard something raw beneath the control. I didn't spend 20 years searching for Lily just to lose you the moment I found you. Amber's throat closed. I didn't ask for this. I know. I don't want any part of your world. I know that too. His voice hardened. But they don't care what you want. They care that I care. And that's enough. So what am I supposed to do? Stay where you are, Edward said. I'm coming. The line went dead. Amber stood in the break room, her phone pressed to her chest, her entire body trembling. Outside, through the window, the black sedan was still waiting. And somewhere in the city, Edward Wallace was already moving. Edward arrived in 20 minutes. No fanfare. No spectacle. Just a sleek black car that pulled up to the restaurant's service entrance, and a single text. Back door. Now. Asterisk asterisk. Amber didn't argue. She grabbed her coat and slipped out while her manager was distracted. The car door opened before she reached it. Edward sat in the back. His expression unreadable. Get in. She did. The door closed. Car moved. They didn't speak during the drive. Edward stared out the window, his jaw tight. His hand resting on his knee. The one he'd cut on the glass, now wrapped in clean gauze. Amber watched the city blur past. Watched them leave the cramped streets she knew and enter neighborhoods where trees lined the roads and gates guarded driveways. 20 minutes later, they turned onto a private road. The estate appeared through the trees like something out of a different world. Stone. Glass. Sprawling and silent. Beautiful in the way fortresses are beautiful. The car stopped. Edward got out first and waited. Amber followed, her legs unsteady. Where are we? Somewhere safe, Edward said simply. He led her inside. The house was quiet. No staff. No guards. No one but them. Edward walked her through a series of hallways until they reached a study. walls lined with books, a fireplace unlit, a desk that looked like it had survived generations. He gestured to a chair. "Sit." Amber sat. Edward moved to a cabinet, unlocked it, and pulled out a worn wooden box. He set it on the desk between them. "Everything I have left of her," he said quietly, "is in here." He opened it. The first thing he showed her was a stack of photographs. Lily and Edward at a cafe. Her laughing at something off camera. Lily and Edward on a boat, the ocean behind them, her hair wild in the wind. Lily and Edward in this very house, her arms around his neck, his forehead pressed to hers. In every photo, her mother looked alive. Not the exhausted, fearful woman Amber had known, but someone vibrant, joyful, whole. "She loved you," Amber whispered. "Yes. So why did she leave?" Edward set the photos aside and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside a ring. Simple. Elegant. A single diamond that caught the light. "I was going to propose properly," Edward said. "With this. But she disappeared before I could." He closed the box and set it down like it burned to touch. Then he pulled out an envelope. Yellowed. Sealed. Addressed in Lily's handwriting. To Edward. "I found this in her apartment after she left," he said. "She never sent it." He handed it to Amber. "Read it." Her hands shook as she opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. Edward. "By the time you find this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know you'll search for me. I know you'll blame yourself. Please don't. I'm leaving because I love you. Because I'm carrying our child. Because I can't raise her in a world where people die for being close to you. I've seen what your life demands. The violence. The compromises. The enemies who don't distinguish between soldiers and bystanders. I won't let our daughter become collateral. You deserve someone who can stand beside you without fear. Someone strong enough for your world. I'm not that person. I'm just a woman who fell in love with a man she can't keep. I hope someday you'll forgive me. I hope someday you'll understand. Love you. Sorry. Lily. Amber's vision blurred. The letter trembled in her hands. "She was protecting you," Edward said quietly. "She knew what my world would do to a child. What it would demand. What it would take." He leaned back, his expression carefully controlled. "Your mother didn't run from me, Amber." He paused. "She ran from what loving me would make her become." Amber looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "What do you mean?" "She would have had to accept the violence. The blood. The choices I make that keep people like me alive and people like her afraid." His voice dropped. "She would have had to become complicit. And she couldn't live with that." He met Amber's gaze. "So she chose you over me. She chose your safety over her happiness. She chose sacrifice over ease." Edward's voice softened just barely. "That's love, Amber. The kind that costs everything." Amber pressed the letter to her chest, her body shaking with sobs she couldn't control. For the first time she understood. Her mother's fear. Her mother's silence. Her mother's endless vigilance. It hadn't been weakness. It had been strength. The kind that breaks you slowly, over years, until there's nothing left but the child you saved. Edward didn't move. Didn't comfort her. He simply sat across from her and let her grieve the mother she'd thought she knew. And the truth she'd never been told. When Amber finally looked up, her voice was raw. "What happens now?" Edward's expression was unreadable. "Now," he said, "you decide who you want to be." The call came at 3:47 p.m. Amber was still at Edward's estate, sitting in the study with Lily's letter folded in her lap, when her phone exploded with noise. Mason's name flashed on the screen. She answered before the first ring finished. "Mason." His voice came through jagged, breathless, terrified. "Amber, there were men they tried to." Her heart stopped. "Where are you?" "Outside the clinic." They grabbed me when I was leaving therapy. Ran. I'm hiding behind. The line crackled. Mason. Mason. Edward was already moving. He took the phone from her hand, his expression lethal. Mason. This is Edward Wallace. Stay exactly where you are. Do not move. Do not hang up. Help is 30 seconds away. He pressed a button on his own phone. Spoke one sentence. Northeast Medical. Now. Then to Mason. You're going to hear a car pull up. Black SUV. 2 men will get out. Their names are Marcus and Torres. They work for me. Go with them. Do not resist. Understand? Shaky breath. Why yes. Good. Stay on the line. Edward handed the phone back to Amber. She pressed it to her ear, her entire body shaking. Mason, I'm here. I'm here. You're okay. Amber, what the hell is happening? I don't know. Just do what he says. Please. Silence. There's a car. Black SUV. That's them. Go with them. But. Mason. Trust me. Another pause. Then the sound of a car door opening. Voices. Whoa. Professional. You Mason Robinson. Yeah. You're safe now. Get in. The door closed. The line went quiet except for the hum of an engine. Then a new voice, older, calm. Ms. Robinson. This is Marcus. Your brother is secure. We're bringing him to the estate now. Amber's knees buckled. Edward caught her before she hit the floor. Mason arrived 20 minutes later. Bill. Chicken. A hole. Amber met him at the door and pulled him into her arms so tightly he gasped. I'm okay, he muttered against her shoulder. I'm okay. But his hands were trembling. She pulled back, scanning him for injuries. What happened? 2 guys. They came up to me when I was leaving therapy. Said they needed to talk to me about you. When I tried to walk away, they grabbed me. His voice cracked. I kicked one of them and ran. I didn't know what else to do. Amber's vision went red. Did they hurt you? No. Just scared me. Edward appeared in the doorway, his presence filling the space. Mason stiffened. Who's he? Amber exhaled slowly. It's complicated. That's Edward Wallace, Mason said flatly. I'm 14, not stupid. I know who he is. He looked at Amber. Why are we here? Because, Edward said before Amber could answer. You're being targeted. Not because of anything you did. Because of who your sister is. Mason's eyes narrowed. And who is she? Mine. The word landed like a gavel. Amber flinched. Mason looked between them, his expression shifting from confusion to something harder. What does that mean? It means, Amber said quietly, that I need to explain a lot of things. But right now you need to be safe. And this is the only place that can happen. Mason stared at her. You're serious? Yes. He swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay. Edward made the arrangements that night. Mason's medication, delivered within the hour, no delays, no questions. His physical therapy, a private specialist would come to the estate twice a week. His school, online enrollment effective immediately. Everything handled with the efficiency of someone who moved entire systems with a single phone call. Amber watched it happen from the study window. Mason was in the next room, eating dinner prepared by a chef Amber hadn't seen. Protected by men she didn't know. Living in a world she didn't understand. Because of her. Edward appeared beside her, silent as a shadow. You didn't have to do this, Amber said. Yes, I did. Why? He didn't look at her. Because they came for him to get to you. And they came for you to get to me. His jaw tightened. That ends now. Amber turned to face him. I need to ask you something. Ask. Will you keep him safe? Edward's gaze met hers. Yes. No matter what. No matter what. Amber's throat closed. This was the moment. The choice her mother had spent 20 years running from. The world Lily had sacrificed everything to keep her out of. But Mason was alive because of Edward. And if she walked away now, if she took Mason and tried to disappear the way her mother had, they would be hunted. Forever. She thought of Lily's letter. She chose you over me. She chose your safety over her happiness. She chose sacrifice over ease. And Amber understood. Some choices weren't about what you wanted. They were about what you couldn't live without. We'll stay, she whispered. Edward nodded once. I'll have rooms prepared. He started to leave. Edward. He stopped. Thank you. He didn't turn around. Don't thank me yet. Then he was gone. And Amber stood alone in the study, watching her old life fade into the distance, knowing she could never go back, knowing she didn't want to. The world had already claimed her. Now she would learn to claim it back. Three weeks passed like a held breath. Amber learned the rhythms of Edward's world. The estate woke before dawn. Silent footsteps in hallways, security rotations, encrypted phone calls in languages she didn't speak. Mason adjusted faster than she expected. His medication arrived on time. His therapist was kind, competent, discreet. He even smiled sometimes. But Amber couldn't settle. She walked the grounds at night when sleep refused to come. She memorized the way moonlight cut through the trees. She learned which floorboards creaked, which rooms Edward occupied, which ones he avoided. He kept his distance. Professional, polite, present only when necessary. He never touched her, never lingered, never looked at her longer than required. But she felt him anyway. In the way security tightened when she left the house. In the way her favorite tea appeared in the kitchen without her asking. In the way Mason's laughter echoed through halls that had been silent for years. Edward was everywhere and nowhere. A presence that shaped the air. The first real conversation happened on a Tuesday night. Amber couldn't sleep. She found herself in the study, the one with Lily's photographs still locked in the cabinet, and didn't hear Edward enter until he spoke. You should be resting. She didn't startle. She'd grown used to the way he moved. So should you. Edward moved to the window, hands in his pockets, his profile sharp against the glass. I don't sleep much. Neither do I. Silence stretched between them. You look like her, Edward said quietly. But you're not her. Amber turned. Is that disappointing? No. He finally looked at her. Lily was soft, kind. She saw the best in people even when they showed her the worst. His expression shifted. You're different, Harper. You see things clearly. You don't flinch. I've had to be. I know. Edward's gaze held hers. You're stronger than she was. Amber's breath caught. She survived 20 years running from you. That's strength. She survived, Edward agreed. But she never stopped running. He paused. You stood still. You chose to stay. That's different. Something in his voice made her pulse spike. I stayed for Mason. I know. Not for you. I know that too. But the way he looked at her suggested he didn't quite believe it. Neither did she. The nights became theirs. Conversations that started practical and drifted personal. Edward told her about the business. Careful, vague, but honest enough that she understood the weight he carried. Amber told him about her mother's final days. The way Lily had gripped her hand and whispered, "Be braver than I was." They didn't touch. But the space between them grew smaller. Charged. Dangerous. Amber started noticing things. The way Edward's voice softened when he spoke to her. The way his gaze tracked her across rooms. The way he positioned himself between her and every door, every window, every threat. Protection. Or possession. She couldn't tell anymore. One night, she found him in his office. Exhausted. His shirt sleeves rolled up, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. You should delegate, she said from the doorway. He glanced up. I do. Not enough. Trusting people gets you killed in my world. So does carrying everything alone. Edward studied her for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Almost invisible, but real. You sound like her. I'm not. I know. His voice dropped. You're not Lily. You're Amber. The way he said her name made something in her chest tighten. And you're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people are. I'm not most people. No, Edward said quietly. You're not. The air between them hummed. He stood. Moved closer. Not touching. Close. Close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. The control it took to maintain the distance. Amber. Her name on his lips felt like a warning. Yes. If you stay here much longer. He stopped. What? His jaw tightened. Nothing. Good night. He left before she could respond. Amber stood in the empty office, her heart pounding, understanding with sudden clarity. Edward Wallace was dangerous. Not because of what he did, but because of what he made her feel. 2 days later, Amber passed the security office. The door was ajar. Voices drifted out. Getting too close. He doesn't get close to anyone. He does now. You see the way he looks at her. If he cares for her, then she's his greatest weakness. Exactly. And weaknesses get exploited. Amber's blood went cold. She stepped back silently, returned to her room, locked the door, and understood with terrible certainty. Staying here hadn't made her safe. It had made her a target. And Edward had just painted a bullseye on both their backs. The FBI arrived on a Thursday morning. 2 agents, dark suits, badges held at precisely the right height. Edward's security tried to stop them at the gate. They had a warrant. Not for Edward. For Amber. Talk. She met them in the estate's formal sitting room, a space she'd never used, all cold marble and uncomfortable chairs designed for confrontation. Agent Rivera spoke first. 40s. Sharp-eyed. The kind of woman who missed nothing. Ms. Robinson. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us. I didn't agree. You have a warrant. Agent Rivera smiled thinly. Fair enough. I'll be direct. We know who Edward Wallace is. We know what he does. And we know you've been living under his protection for the last month. Amber said nothing. Agent Chen leaned forward. Younger, eager, less controlled. We also know your mother was Lily Hart. That she was engaged to Wallace before she disappeared. That you're his biological daughter. Amber's pulse spiked, but her face stayed neutral. If you have questions, ask them. Rivera opened a folder. Photographs spilled across the table. Crime scenes. Surveillance photos. Edward in the background of a dozen federal investigations. Edward Wallace has been untouchable for 15 years, Rivera said. We've never been able to build a case that sticks. Witnesses disappear. Evidence vanishes. People forget what they saw. She looked up. But you're different. You're inside his world. You see things. Hear things. I'm a waitress who moved in to protect my brother. You're leverage, Chin said bluntly. And you're the closest anyone has gotten to Wallace in a decade. Rivera shot him a look, then softened her voice. Ms. Robinson. Amber. We're not asking you to wear a wire. We're not asking you to betray him. Then what are you asking? Testify. Tell us what you know. Help us build a case. Amber's laugh was hollow. I don't know anything. You don't have to lie to us. I'm not. Rivera slid a paper across the table. Witness protection. Full coverage for your brother's medical care. New life. You and Mason both. Free. Away from all of this. Amber stared at the document. Her old life. Handed back on a silver platter. All she had to do was speak. Agent Chen leaned in. Your mother ran from Wallace for a reason. She spent 20 years hiding. Protecting you. His voice dropped. Don't let her sacrifice be for nothing. Amber's hands curled into fists. You didn't know my mother. We know she was terrified. We know she loved him. The room went still. Amber looked up, her voice steady. My mother loved Edward Wallace. She didn't run because he was a monster. She ran because she couldn't reconcile loving him with the world he lived in. Rivera's expression shifted. That doesn't make him innocent. I didn't say it did. Then help us. No. The word dropped like a stone. Rivera sat back. You understand what you're choosing. If you protect him, you become complicit. You become part of his world. There's no coming back from that. Amber thought of her mother's letter. She ran from what loving me would make her become. She thought of Mason, safe, healthy, laughing for the first time in years. She thought of Edward, watching her across silent rooms with a control that was fracturing. She thought of the choice her mother had made. Love or safety. Her mother had chosen safety. And it had broken her. Amber met Rivera's gaze. I don't know anything, she said clearly. I'm a waitress who serves tables. Edward Wallace gave my brother medical care when we couldn't afford it. That's all. Chen slammed his hand on the table. You're making a mistake. Maybe. He's dangerous. I know. If you stay. I'm staying. Rivera closed the folder slowly. Then you're on your own. I've always been on my own. The agent stood. Walked to the door. Rivera paused at the threshold. Your mother tried to protect you from this life. You're walking straight into it. My mother, Amber said quietly, taught me how to survive, not how to run. The door closed. Amber sat alone in the silence, her hands trembling, her heart certain. That night, Edward found her in the study. She was standing by the window, watching rain streak the glass. He didn't ask what the FBI wanted. He already knew. You could have left, he said. I know. They would have protected you. I know that too. Edward moved closer. Why didn't you? Amber turned. Their eyes met. Because my mother spent 20 years running. And I watched it destroy her. He paused. I won't live like that. Edward's expression was unreadable. But something behind his eyes shifted. Often. He gestured to the table. Sit. She did. He sat across from her, the same way they'd sat that first night, but everything was different now. She wasn't a ghost of Lily, wasn't an echo, wasn't a memory. She was Amber Robinson, and she had chosen him, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but because she understood, finally, what her mother never could. Some battles are worth the cost. Edward leaned forward, his voice low, deliberate, and for the first time since she'd known him, vulnerable. Now we begin. Amber held his gaze. And didn't look away. Then. Thank you for staying with me till the very end of this story. Every view, every comment, every moment you spend here keeps these stories alive. If you felt this one, make sure to subscribe, and let me know you watched to the end.